On a cold Friday night high above Manhattan, the rooftop restaurant Obsidian glowed like a glass palace where money spoke louder than manners. Servers slipped between tables with trained invisibility, but Cassidy Holloway moved differently. Shoulders tight, steps careful, carrying the weight of a hospital bill no one in the room would ever understand. She was laying fresh linens when the doors opened and the temperature in the room shifted. Grant Sterling, billionaire, feared dealmaker, man who never heard the word no, strode in with a grin sharp enough to cut crystal. His Japanese guests followed, stiff with politeness, already sensing the imbalance of power. Cassidy approached their table, steadying a water carafe. Grant didn't wait. He pointed at her like summoning entertainment. "Hey, sweetheart," he said loudly. "Try Japanese. Translate this, and I'll make it worth your while." A few nearby diners laughed. His guests did not. Cassidy lifted her eyes, something fierce flickering beneath the exhaustion. "Sir," she replied quietly, "are you sure you want to start with me tonight?" The table fell silent. Grant smirked, unaware he had just pulled the pin from his own grenade. What happens next turns the entire room and his empire upside down. Like and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more stories that hit this hard. The room held its breath the moment Cassidy met Grant Sterling's eyes. The billionaire looked amused, as if he had discovered a new toy to pull apart in front of his guests. His Japanese partners exchanged uneasy glances. The lights above softened to a warm gold, but nothing about the moment felt warm. It felt like the calm that arrives seconds before glass shatters. Cassidy didn't step back. She placed the water carafe on the table with steady fingers. Behind her calm expression was a storm no one in that room had earned the right to see. Her mother's hospital bills. The second job she'd lost last month. The apartment notice taped to her door. All the little humiliations of the past year stacked inside her like bricks. Grant had no idea how close he was to the one line she refused to let anyone cross. "Go on," Grant said again, leaning back in his chair. "Translate it. Since you clearly want to be part of the conversation." Cassidy kept her eyes on him, just long enough to let him know she heard the insult. Before she could speak, Mr. Tanaka shifted in his seat. "Mr. Sterling," he said gently. "Perhaps." "No," Grant cut in sharply. "Let her try. If she wants to stand here breathing my air, she should earn her keep." Cassidy exhaled slowly. Her hands were at her sides, but her voice was clear when she finally answered. "I didn't ask to be part of your conversation, sir. I asked what kind of water you preferred." The table stilled. Grant's eyebrows twitched, surprise then irritation. Tiffany snorted. "She thinks she's clever." Cassidy didn't respond. She never saw the point in explaining herself to people who wanted to misunderstand her. Grant tapped the table. "Fine. Since you want to talk, let's raise the stakes." He pulled out a leather money clip, peeled off several crisp bills, and dropped them onto the white tablecloth. They fluttered to a stop like feathers, soft, mocking. "Say something in Japanese. Something useful. I'll even pick the line. Say, 'I am a simple waitress.' Shouldn't be hard, should it?" One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Grant, maybe." "Quiet," Grant said without turning. "This is business entertainment." The words landed harder than the money. Entertainment. That was all she was to him. Cassidy felt a pulse of heat behind her ribs. A brief flare of anger she pushed back down where it belonged. She had survived far worse than a man with too much money and too little conscience. Her voice remained calm. "If that's what you want translated, I can do it." Grant raised an eyebrow as if he had expected her to run. "Well, we're waiting." Cassidy didn't look at him. Instead she bowed, slowly, precisely, to Mr. Tanaka. The room shifted. Her voice, when it came, moved like silk, measured, respectful, and carrying a weight no one expected. "Tanaka-sama," she said in flawless Japanese. "I apologize deeply for the disrespect you have been shown. The man beside me does not understand the value of honor, nor the dignity owed to his guests." A sharp clatter broke the silence. Tanaka's spoon hitting the table. What did she just say? Grant asked, confused. His translator paled. She apologized on behalf of the restaurant. And sir, she used honorific language. Very formal. Very high level. Grant blinked, the first flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Cassidy didn't give him time to recover. She turned to the younger Japanese assistant. Kenji-san, she continued gently, your employer deserves the truth. The contract you were shown contains a hidden clause that allows Sterling and Company to dissolve your division after 6 months. He has not been honest with you. Kenji's eyes widened. He grabbed the document and flipped pages quickly, whispering to Mr. Tanaka in alarm. Grant shot to his feet. What did she say? Dave, translate. Dave swallowed. She exposed the liquidation clause, sir. Grant's face darkened. You little rat. You read my documents. Cassidy finally looked at him, her gaze steady and unflinching. You left them open on your chair. Have eyes. And a memory. That's all. Gasps spread across nearby tables. A few diners pretended not to listen. Most didn't bother hiding their interest. Mr. Tanaka stood. Mr. Sterling, he said evenly. The deal is off. Grant reeled as if struck. You can't walk away. We had nothing, Tanaka interrupted softly. Honor cannot be negotiated with men who do not possess it. Grant sputtered. This is insane. She's a waitress. Tanaka looked at Cassidy with a slow, respectful nod. She is a woman of integrity. That matters more than titles. Cassidy felt something tighten in her chest. Unexpected, quiet gratitude. Grant leaned in close, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You're fired. And you will regret this. Cassidy didn't respond. His threats felt small compared to everything she'd carried on her own shoulders until this moment. When Tanaka invited her to leave with him, she hesitated only long enough to untie her apron and set it gently on the table beside the untouched money. Keep your tip, Mr. Sterling, she said. I don't need to be bought. The billionaire's stare followed her out of the restaurant. Cold, calculating, dangerous. Hours later, Cassidy sat in the quiet safety of Mr. Tanaka's car as the city lights blurred past. The calm inside the Rolls-Royce felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's life. But when Tanaka spoke, everything came sharply back into focus. You carry yourself like someone raised among diplomats, he said gently. And you speak like someone who knows what it means to lose everything. Cassidy looked down. My father was a diplomat. Before the scandal destroyed him. Tanaka's expression softened. A scandal engineered by Western investors. Investors who profited greatly from his downfall. She swallowed. She didn't need him to say the name, she already knew it. Sterling. She stared out the window, her breath unsteady. He hurt my family once, she whispered. I won't let him do it again. Tanaka rested a hand on the file in his lap. Then perhaps you and I have a common enemy. From that night on, Cassidy moved between two worlds, the polished boardrooms of Tanaka Corp and the shadowed corners where Grant summoned her to deliver intel. The meetings were suffocating. Grant always wore the same confident smirk, the expression of a man who believed he owned every person standing within reach. One morning in Central Park, he leaned close to her, breath cold in the winter air. When I'm done with Tanaka, I'll own his whole empire. And you'll be free. Until then, you work for me. Cassidy didn't answer. She simply handed him the flash drive, the one she and Bennett Cole had filled with curated misinformation designed to pull Grant deeper into his own greed. Bennett, the journalist who once tried to defend her father, now became her closest ally. They met in dim diners, in parking garages, in quiet bars where no one asked questions. Bennett's voice was always steady, but his eyes were sharp with purpose. He thinks you're cornered, Bennett said one night as he spread forged files across the table. That's what men like him rely on. Fear. Obedience. But you have something he'll never understand. Cassidy looked up. What? A conscience, Bennett answered. And someone worth fighting for. Still, the deeper she went, the heavier the risk became. Grant had people watching her. He controlled her mother's treatment. He held her apartment lease. Every meeting with him felt like stepping into a cage wearing fresh bruises of responsibility. But every time she looked at her mother in the hospital bed, breathing easier now, skin warmer, hope returning, she found her resolve again. When the moment finally came to set the trap, Cassidy felt the weight of the entire scheme pressing down on her shoulders. The Tanaka Winter Gala glowed with ice blue lights, crystal chandeliers, and music soft enough to hide a heartbeat. Her gown flowed like midnight ink, but underneath she was coiled steel. Grant arrived with cameras following him, believing the night belonged to him. His arrogance filled the room like smoke. When he announced on stage that he had purchased Ether Dynamics, a fake shell company designed to collapse under legal scrutiny, the room erupted in whispers. He smiled, expecting awe. Instead, phones lit up across the ballroom. Faces changed. Someone gasped. And then Bennett Cole stepped into the spotlight with a file in hand. "The truth," Bennett said, his voice echoing against gold pillars, "is that Grant Sterling used illegal offshore accounts to fund an acquisition for a company that does not own a single functioning patent." Grant blanched. "Lies. All of it." Bennett opened the folder. "We have the wire transfers. And we have recordings of you extorting Cassidy Holloway to spy on Mr. Tanaka." The room froze. Cassidy stepped forward. For the first time, her voice rose above Grant's. "You wanted a translation, Mr. Sterling," she said. "Here is mine." The FBI entered before Grant could run. They read the charges calmly. Wire fraud, extortion, securities manipulation, each word a nail sealing his fate. Grant lunged toward Cassidy, fury twisting his features. "You ruined me." She didn't flinch. "No. You ruined yourself." Tanaka Security intercepted Grant, pinning him to the floor as his empire collapsed publicly around him. Reporters shouted. Cameras flashed. His name, once gilded, now echoed like a warning. Cassidy stood over him, calm at last. "It's over." Grant looked up at her with hatred and fear. But for the first time, he understood he had chosen the wrong woman to break. And this time, there was no one left to save him. The fallout was only beginning. As the ballroom emptied and the sirens faded into the night, Cassidy stepped onto the terrace overlooking Central Park. The cold air felt different now. Not sharp, not punishing, but clean, like something finally lifted from her shoulders. She wasn't the girl carrying trays at Obsidian anymore. She wasn't the woman cornered by a billionaire's threats. She had become someone who could face power without shrinking from it. Behind her, Mr. Tanaka joined quietly, hands folded behind his back. "You acted with courage," he said. "Not for reward, but because truth demanded it." Cassidy didn't answer right away. She watched the lights shimmer across the lake, thinking of the long nights, the fear, the impossible choices. "I just didn't want to run anymore," she said softly. Tanaka nodded once. "Then you chose the path that shapes leaders." Those words settled deep, not as praise but as recognition, something she hadn't felt in years. Somewhere in the city below, Grant Sterling was facing consequences he never imagined, and the world he once controlled was no longer his. Cassidy turned from the railing, ready for whatever came next. The night felt wide open, and for the first time, so did her future. If this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who loves powerful tales, and help Canada's Heartfelt Tales grow by subscribing to the channel.